Hello. Hello, I am Leo Street. I am here to talk about the Russia-US virtual exchange that we had in public speaking this year. So, in our first meeting, we had a general discussion where we talked about our differences and how our schools function and how our schools dealt with the pandemic. And then they had questions about ours and we answered those as well. I participated by actively listening and I got contact with several of the students so that I could keep in touch with them. And I learned that we all have very similar ways of dealing with school and also very different. So we all at my school we all drive there. At theirs they all just walk there because they live on campus. In our second discussion, we discussed Russian and American figures in science. So we participated by, the American students participated by talking about American scientists. So one person talked about Bill Nye. I talked about the conservation initiative in North Carolina about the oyster trail. In the Russian students talked about historical Russian scientific figures. They talked about Ivan Pavlov and how he was Russian, and the majority of them knew who Bill Nye was, so that surprised me. In our third meeting, we discussed the differences between Russian students and students in the US again. We talked about transportation, what we eat, and how far we live from our schools if we don't live on campus, which none of the American students live on campus. I participated by asking the Russian students questions, and I spoke from the perspective of a student who lives an hour out from the college. I learned that coffee is universal and that the about some Russian traditions involving tea because there was a question about sweet tea brought up. In our fourth Russian exchange, we discussed music and specifically what types of music each group liked and listened to, and then when we listen to it and where we listen to music. Because a lot of the American students listen to music in cars. However, a lot of the Russian students don't even have cars because it's not necessary. I participated by sharing the song See the Day by the Altogether and briefly talking about the singer Brian David Gilbert. And I also participated by listening to the other students' songs. I learned that the Russian students know a lot of American music. Meanwhile, us American students don't know a lot of Russian music. I also learned that a lot of the American students tend to listen to English-speaking songs if they listen to foreign music at all. So overall, that was what we talked about. And what I learned in the end was that the Russian students and the American students don't actually have nearly as many differences as I thought we would have. Because even though they live on campus and they are in Russia and they have a completely different climate and time zone, we share a lot of the same habits and a lot of the same mannerisms and school lives where we are very busy, but we're getting through. And that's what matters. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this.